Hey everybody out there, this is Modern Day Duelist, aka Seto Kaiba, and today for you guys, I decided to make this video and dedicate it to the hype. Yes, the hype. What is the hype? Well, that's whatever it could be. That could be a million different things that could be hyped up in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you think about it. And how often the hype actually fails. You know, when that hype train leaves the station, it doesn't always end up where you want it to go. You're on, as Ozzy Osbourne would say, a crazy freaking train, and it could crash and burn. And a lot of times it does that with the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I find that, personally, hype in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not always validated. I can honestly say hype doesn't always end up the way you want it to be. And it's something I want to discuss of what are some signs to, instead of getting on a hype train and not knowing what to do and just following what other people are telling you, to how yourself to do detective work to prevent yourself from getting on a hype train that's probably going to crash and burn, and getting on a hype train that actually is probably going to make it to the next station and be successful, is what I'm trying to say here. If that's a weird analogy, I do apologize, but I wanted to discuss that with you guys today. So the reason I even came up with this video, I'll tell you a little story here quickly, came up with this idea for this video, is I was looking at a card that came out back in, I'm not going to be able to put a picture up on the screen right now because my computer is not working, but an old card from the 5Ds era called Painter. Now this card, when this card came out, just didn't know this if you're familiar with the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At all. If you remember the card called Plague Splitter Zombie, which was a great tuner in DAD format and all these other formats. It was a card when it came out as a secret rare, Painter that was hyped up to be the next Plague Splitter Zombie. Well, I'm just going to say this. It didn't turn out like that. And a lot of people brought into that hype back in those days. And it completely crashed and burned. It really, really did. A lot of people lost money on that card. I remember that back then. And I just randomly found it in a dollar binder, and I just picked it up because I thought it was a cool card, and I was putting it in my binder. I was like, oh, I remember when this card was hyped up. And then it just got me thinking about old nostalgic cards that get hyped up, and old archetypes and old decks that just didn't pan out. And how we can tell and prevent ourselves from getting on those hype trains, and when it's a good idea to get on those hype trains. Because sometimes it's actually a good idea, especially if you're investing in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And how you can make money too from hype. So let's slow down here and let's talk about ways to notice if a deck that is coming out in the future, if you're trying to invest it and people are hyping it up, is it going to be successful or not? And what I've done when I am looking at a deck that I want to pick up that I think, and I want to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And what I've done throughout the course of Yu-Gi-Oh! History, now that you have at your fingertips the internet. So what do I do? So one thing I always try to do when I'm looking at a deck and it comes out, well, there's one place, for the most part, that all decks have to go through. There's one spot that they all have to go through before we get them here in the TCG, thankfully. And that is they have to go through OCG land. They have to be in tournament play in the OCG, unless they're TCG exclusives. Those are a little bit harder to judge on. You know, when Burning Abyss came out originally, people thought it was not going to be a great deck because of what had happened with Noble Knights. Well, that turned out to be pretty wrong. But you get my point. What I'm trying to say here is, for the most part, they have to go in the be played in the OCG and go through OCG tournaments. And you know, one of the big things that people do out there is, like Lithium and other people, we have weekly OCG tournament reports, monthly OCG tournament reports, from when a new list comes out for them to a new set drop to weekly and monthly things. And you can tell what's topping over there. Now, I'm going to admit to you this. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. The OCG and TCG ban list are completely different. The player set mindset for both players is a little bit different. They do play differently over there in the OCG than they do over here in the TCG. I have been told this, and I've seen it for myself when I've had visiting OCG players come over, or people that were got back into the game over in the OCG land because they were on tour of duty over in Japan or Korea, and then they've come back. They play differently. They build their decks a little bit differently and things of that nature. Actually, it's a little bit slightly different. It's not drastically different, but it is a change, a slight things. And I've seen this happen multiple times throughout my Yu-Gi-Oh career. But the thing it does for you is it gives you a sample size, a good sample size to see what's topping. Because there's been too many times I've seen decks that people hype up over here in the TCG and they do nothing over in the OCG. Like, they get maybe 5% of the tops. 10%. Maybe they get 10%, 15% the first week because it's a new deck, nobody knows how to play against it, and then you look a month later and it's 5% and nothing else has changed except the evolution of the format over there. Yeah, it happens a lot. And then the thing I always get from people to justify the hype for the deck is, oh, well, the OCG is completely different, and the TCG over here, we have this, this, and this, and this, and this is how it's going to be affected because of this, this, and this, and it's going to do better over here because of that. No, 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 no. Yes, the games are played differently, the balance are different, but the fundamentals of the game are pretty much the same. If it's not succeeding over there, and it's at full support, why is it going to succeed over here? A good example of this is, please do not hate me for if you don't like this deck, is if you look at, I know a lot of people, when the Rocket structure deck came out, initially, were super hyped. They thought it was going to be a competitive meta deck. Yep, didn't do that much, did it? It hasn't done that much yet, I'll say that. But you see what I'm trying to say here. Layer of Darkness structure deck. I don't discontent that Layer of Darkness is a bad deck. It's a good deck that can top regionals and locals. I've seen it. I've done it. But do you remember when Layer of Darkness was announced? How big that hype train was? When that structure deck Layer of Darkness was announced about a year ago? Whew. People, you would think that deck was going to be the best deck in the last 10 years, couple years of Yu-Gi-Oh. Really. I remember that. People swore to me. And I'm looking at the tournament reports in the OCG and I'm like, they're doing okay, but they're not 50% of the meta. That's not happening. That means it's probably going to do okay, but it's not going to be super amazing. And what happened? It got a couple tops. It still tops here and there, but chill. It's not the best deck in the last couple years. You gotta look at the OCG because it'll give you a sample size of what to expect when a deck comes out. When Mermances, a good archetype we're talking about, Marine Cess got announced, people thought, oh, I know we have a new card coming out for them, Blue Slug, I think it is. Not Blue Slug. I'm having to forget for the name, but that's coming out in a couple weeks with a new set, which is going to really help the deck out. But still, when Marine Cess first came out in the OCG, people said, oh, this deck is broken, it's going to be this, 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 and this, it's going to be great. And it hasn't topped a major event. It's topped some regionals and locals. And Baby got a top 32 somewheres that I forgot to look at. And the OCG, you noticed that too. Like, it did good. It got, I think, 15% of the pie. A little bit more maybe, but yeah. Oh, remember Altergeist? Yeah, Altergeist did good over here, I will admit that. But when they were coming out in the OCG, people were like, when they were initially first released and announced, people were like, oh my gosh, so good. Did okay over in the OCG. No, did good. How did it do over here? Not so good. Yeah. Got some tops, yep. Did it dominate the meta? Yeah, it did. It did. Before stuff happened, yeah. Before some cards got hit, yeah, I agree with you. Did it do as well as you thought it would? No. I got that answer a lot from a lot of people that brought into that deck when it first came out, when multi-fakers were very expensive. But that's a joke. I don't on my old some of my Altergeist player friends, but it happens a lot in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh. Cards get hyped up, they do nothing. And the best way to tell if a card's going to be good or not, as long as it's not a TCG exclusive card, is to see what it's doing over in the OCG. If it's having a lot of major success, that usually pertains that it's going to be good. Rarity does not always dictate how good a card is going to be. I have seen so many times people hype up a secret rare card that did nothing over in the OCG for extraordinary amounts of money, and then it comes out and it does nothing. It just falls flat on its face. Completely. And you may say, well, really? That happened? Yeah, people will just hype up secret rares because they're secret rares. And they have no justification. Just because Konami made it a secret rare means it must be good. Yeah, that's not true. You should know that by now. But people try to make money in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Through different means. So I can't just, say no to that, but that does happen. Remember Super Ultimate Team Buddy Force? Yeah, somebody told me that was going to be meta for ABC. I haven't seen that happen yet. It's been a year, but maybe it will happen. That's what I'm trying to say. It happens from time to time. So yeah, be careful when you're dealing with hype. And on a different note, if you're trying to make money from hype, do it. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've pulled a card and I'm like, I don't see this card being any use for any meta deck. It's probably going down in price. And I've sold it at a sneak peek for money because it made a lot of money, and it made some money and was able to buy the card back with some profit because it was just hyped up to, a great thing, and I didn't see the potential in the card. I didn't believe it was going to happen. And then there's been times I've been completely wrong. So, but I will say there's ways out there doing that. Check in the OCG, not just listening with your ears, looking with your eyes at what's happening over there. And doing your play testing yourself with the deck to see how it happens. Because a lot of times what I see happens is, and this is such a thing with YouTube, and I'm not ragging on it, but it happens, and it gets a lot of views for people, is people will make the deck like a day or two after it comes out on a Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro with Dev Pro, right? They'll play the deck online, and they'll show replays of it. You have to consider two things why those decks were so successful that they put them online. Number one, it's a new deck. Number two, the player that you're playing against doesn't know that much about that deck and how it functions. Number two, it's online replays. I don't mean to discount that, but you can't use that as a great sample size compared to in life what tournament reports are saying. Thirdly, the meta currently is going to be different, most likely, by the time that set comes out. A good example of knowing that a deck is going to be successful, and this is a very, rare occasion, but it does happen, is Dragon Rulers. Now, when Dragon Rulers were being announced, what was the most hyped out deck at the time when Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy was coming out? It wasn't Dragon Rulers initially. It was freaking Harpies, which were a good deck and did get a couple tops doing that format, and a little bit of time after that, but it was Harpies that were considered to be the next best deck in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That didn't happen. Dragon Rulers happened, and we started seeing OCG reports of Dragon Rulers back in 2013, and we quickly found out, oh, yeah, it's dominating. This is going to be the best deck, not Harpies. But people still brought a lot of old school Harpy support. Harpy's Pet Dragon went to like $300, the OG one, because they only had one print, because people thought that was going to be the best deck. So, always do your homework. And remember those things. The format will be different. Do your research, and you will be successful and not getting hurt by the hype train. Take care, everybody. I'll see you guys next time.